Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 222. Joined again by Jacob Kamaker from NBC Sports Boston. How are you doing, Jacob?
I'm doing good. How are you, Walt?
Good. We're going to be talking Week 5 NFL picks this week. How'd your Week 4 go?
My week 4 went pretty well. I think my overall record wasn't so great. I think I was something like 9-6, I think, which is fine. But all my big money plays, like the ones that I played the most units on, did pretty well. The only one I didn't hit on was Indianapolis against Oakland. I had Indy. You had Oakland in that one, so you ended up being right. But overall, another good week. Didn't quite get to double-digit wins. But how did you do this week? I think you did even better than I did, I think.
Yeah, I had a great week. 12-3 overall against the spread. For I think it was plus 12.4 units. So it was the first time we had back-to-back 10 plus unit days or weeks, I guess, since late in 2017. So it's definitely off to a good start this year. Although week 1 wasn't very good, but ever since then it's been great. So hopefully it continues. I've loved the cards in weeks 2, 3, and 4. I've said that on this podcast. This week, there are only like 3 or 4 games I love, and then like the other ones are kind of cloudy right now. Like I just don't know where to go with, and that's kind of unfortunate because in the Super Contest you need to pick 5 games. So I hope some injury news unearths some stuff because it's gonna be tough to get the 5 picks. I think. Before we get to the picks, how do you feel about this card?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the slate. I was going through some of the games, and just a lot of them seem like toss-ups to me, or the spread. The spread sometimes seems either dead right or maybe a little bit off of what I would think. So there's not too many games that I'm super confident in this week. I think I have a few that I really like, but aside from those, there are a lot of ones that I'm not really willing to bet at this moment. So we'll see if that changes, like you said, but definitely not as favorable as the last few weeks.
Yeah, there's one pick already locked in. So yeah, like I said, there's a few I love. Let's get to the Thursday night game, the Rams at the Seahawks. So it's gonna be another Thursday night game after last week's, I assume. The Rams open up -2. Now the Seahawks are favored by 2 or 1.5, equal money. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Rams in this one. I think that swing in the spread is a little bit of an overreaction to the Rams losing to the Bucs. I know they did not look good at all, and they made Jameis Winston look like Tom Brady, which is never a good thing. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a team make Jameis Winston look that good at any level of competition. But I can't bring myself to pick Seattle in this one because they're only about 500 as a home favorite against the spread since 2014. They're 2-6 in their last 8 games against the Rams, and that's 1-3 at home too. And they're just not very good against the Rams lately. They've kind of been one of Russell Wilson's thorn in the side type teams. And I just think the Rams might be better suited for the short week game than the Seahawks because Seahawks are coming off of a big win against the Cardinals. The Rams coming off a pretty disappointing loss. I don't love the 2-point spread in this one, but I just think the Rams, they've had the Seahawks number, so I'd be willing to take them as the underdog. I don't know if they'll be able to win this outright, but I think there's at least a good chance of that happening. So I'm on the Rams this week for that one.
So I had the Bucs last week, and I was pretty happy to see Tampa cover, but I was hoping the Rams would win outright because I wanted a good number on this game, and we're not getting it. I was hoping for the Rams to be favored by like 3 or something, and I thought Seattle +3 would be a good side because I think one of the most likely results of this game is the Rams winning by 3. So to get that as well as Seattle by 3 would be huge. But now Seattle's favored, so there's no line value. But I still like the Seahawks a little bit, so we're gonna be on different sides to start. Only enough to bet them 1 unit. It's not going to be a high play or anything, but I've been calling the Rams the luckiest team in the NFL. So week 1, they played the Panthers. Cam Newton was clearly hobbled. He wasn't himself. He didn't even run until the third quarter. Week 2, they played the Saints, and then Drew Brees got injured. So really, really can't say anything about that. And then week 3, they played a Cleveland team missing its entire secondary. And then they get blown out by the Buccaneers at home. And I think they were looking ahead a little bit to this game. So I'm not going to read like that much into it, but I already didn't like the Rams to begin with. So I think they might be, while the spread did move, the advanced spread in this game was Rams -2.5. So we're getting 4.5 points of movement, depending on what the line is. But I think that line was wrong to begin with in the first place. Like I think the correct spread is probably Seahawks -2. That's actually what I made this line. So I like Seattle a little bit. I don't like the Rams, and it's kind of like double revenge here for the Seahawks. You said the Rams have had their number, which is true. The Rams swept them last year, but I think that might be just added motivation for the Seahawks. If you remember last year, the game in Seattle almost won the game. I believe they had the lead in the fourth quarter, and the Rams scored at the end. So this Rams team is not as good as that last one, and the Rams can't block. Like they have severe offensive line issues. So I think that's something Seattle could take advantage of. So I like the Seahawks a little bit here, but not nearly as much as some of the other picks.
Yeah, and I could see why you'd pick the Seahawks. They're good at home, and I don't like the Rams much this year either. I think we both hammered the Bucks game last week because that 10-point line was ridiculous from the start. I actually played that as part of a 6-team teaser and ended up cashing on that somehow. I don't know how, but yeah, no, the Rams are definitely not a good team. I say I won't be betting on this game. I probably will because I'm a degenerate. It really could go either way. But I'm going to stick with the Rams. But I'm not very confident in that at all.
Yeah, it's the standalone game, right? If this were one of like 8 games, you might not bet it, but it's the only game on Thursday night, besides college. So, I feel like you're more enticed to bet these games. And that happened to me on Monday night where I actually ended up betting the Steelers, which worked out well, but doesn't always work out that way. So
I did the exact same thing. And I was right after the Bengals got that first field goal, I'm like, I'm going to regret this. And lo and behold, we ended up okay.
Yeah, they didn't score after that. So, yeah, it was a good night. Speaking of the Steelers, the Ravens are at the Steelers. Ravens opened up -3.5. It's still -3.5. Actually, there was a 4 I saw earlier, but it seems to be trending downward. I love this game. So I'm wondering if we're on the same side.
I think it has to be the Steelers in this one. I mean, the Ravens are pretty overrated right now. I mean, everyone's remembering what they did to Miami and the fact that they won against the Cardinals, but they haven't really played well against better teams, and they just got thrashed by the Cleveland Browns, who I think the Browns are better than they were at the start of the season, but they still have their share of issues. And losing by whatever it was, 20 or 14 points, whatever it was, pretty bad. They've allowed 76 total points the last 2 weeks, so their defense isn't strong, but no one's really talking about that because everyone's so focused on Lamar Jackson. Meanwhile, the Steelers I know it was against the Bengals, but they sort of figured out how to move the ball a little bit more. Getting Jalen Samuels involved, running those tap passes seemed to work. I don't think it'll work as well a second time around, but at least they're willing to change up what they're doing, and maybe they'll bring some new wrinkles for Mason Rudolph to battle the Ravens with. So I just think the Steelers are the better side right now. Their defense is improving. They're figuring out how to run their offense with Rudolph. And I just don't see why this should be a 3.5-point spread with the Steelers at home too. The Steelers, they really need a win. The Ravens might overlook them. I'm not positive because it's a rivalry game, but I think this one's going to be closer than people are going to anticipate.
Yeah, I think anyone who thinks the Ravens should be favored by 3.5 or more just hasn't watched them this year, except for the first game, maybe. That game threw everything off. And if you look at every Miami game, I think if you filter out all the other results, like you can't really factor that into anything. Like, for example, the Chargers, they won by 17 against the Dolphins, or maybe it was 20 actually against the Dolphins. But all their other games, they haven't covered the spread. And the same thing happened with the Ravens. They killed Miami week 1, and they haven't covered the spread since. And, they beat Arizona in week 2. And I think back then people thought as like, hey, it's a good win. Arizona just tied with Detroit. Arizona could have beaten the Lions. So it was like, hey, the Ravens had a nice win. But as we've found out since, Arizona just has gotten demolished ever since that game. So that win looks less impressive. And then ever since that win, the Ravens have been blown out in every game. So this Baltimore team is not that good. They shouldn't be favored by 3.5 in the spot. I actually made this line Steelers -1.5, and I don't only like to rely on my numbers. So look at the other things. The computer model I use says Ravens -1 is the right number. DVOA says this should be a pick 'em. So everything's beneath 3.5. 3. 3 is the key number. Likely result of this game is Baltimore winning by 3. So to get both sides of 3, I think is huge. And these games tend to be close. Like the Steelers-Ravens game, they're always decided by a field goal. So to get +3.5 with the home team, it's pretty rare. So I really like the Steelers here. They're one of my top plays. I actually locked this in already at +3.5 at BetUS. It's still +3.5 -115, which I would take. It's worth paying the 115 for a 3. So yeah, I love the Steelers. They're my best play of the early afternoon slate.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I'll probably lock in very shortly after this, if not right now during the podcast. So I simply like that pick. And I don't really see a reason to pick the Ravens or even think about it.
Yeah, the line's just way too high. And it looks like the Sharps are on the Steelers as well. So that's kind of another reason to like Pittsburgh. Next game, this game's in London. So the Bears versus the Raiders. This line opened up Bears -7. It's down to 5. A good amount of action on the Bears, not too much, like 2/3. So who do you like in this game?
I was pretty torn on this one. As you know, the Raiders have been my kryptonite this year. I think I'm 1-3 picking the Raiders against the spread, and the only time I got it right, I'm pretty sure on the podcast I said I don't want to pick the Vikings over the Raiders by this many, but I'm going to. So, I have never been confident in an Oakland pick this year, and I don't think I will be at this point. But, the question boils down to how are the Bears going to be with Chase Daniel, and how much does Vontaze Burfict's absence impact the Raiders, and which is going to have the bigger impact on the two teams? I would tend to wager that the Bears are going to be roughly the same as they would be with Daniel on the field, because Trubisky hasn't been good this year, and Daniel's a fine backup. He's nothing great, but again, Trubisky's nothing great really either. So I think Burfict's absence hurts the Raiders more than Trubisky's hurts the Bears, which is kind of a sad thing to say about a number 2 pick quarterback in a class where Patrick Mahomes was selected. But we can always have that debate another time. Also, this game's in London, so the Raiders aren't really a home team, so there's no home field advantage. So I think the Bears are probably the right side here. I think I don't want to really bet much, if anything, on Chase Daniel. So I'll take Bears -4.5. Might put a unit on it, but I'm not overly confident in this one. So I think, but I still think the Bears are the right side here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not too crazy about the Bears. I don't think I'm going to bet this game. Maybe a unit, like you said. But there's a lot of action coming in on the Bears, and I wonder if I'm missing something, because I made this line Bears -7.5, and the computer model I use says Bears -10 is the correct number. Although DVOA says -4.5, so that's kind of where the spread is. So you have like two of the line metrics I use thinks that this line is way too low. So I'm like wondering if something's wrong here. Like, what am I missing? And then I wonder if if I'm betting on the Bears, you have to count on Chase Daniel winning by 6 points or more. And like Daniel, I feel like I want to see if you agree. Like Daniel is obviously not nearly as talented as Trubisky, but Daniel, I think, while he doesn't have the higher ceiling, he has a lower ceiling. He has the higher floor than Trubisky, because Trubisky is going to make a lot of mistakes, whereas Daniel, I feel like, is going to be safer, but the offense isn't going to be as nearly as explosive in some weeks. Like, what do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's the classic. It's a classic Alex Smith type quarterback situation where Chase Daniel's kind of like the Alex Smith of backups, where he'll come in. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes, like you said, but he's not going to make any flashy plays either. He'll do some smart things, do some stuff with his legs. But, if you run into a good defense, he's not going to push the envelope against them. And I don't think he's going to push the envelope much against Oakland. I think he's going to rely on the run game and the short pass game to get most of the work done.
Yeah, I agree. So, I like the Bears here a little bit. not too much. Asking them to win by 6 or more could be tough. There could be a backdoor cover or something stupid. I could see this being like a 13-3 game in the fourth quarter, and then Derek Carr just throws a garbage touchdown at the end. So it could be 13-10. So that's a likely result. So I'm not going to bet this game. Probably not. But I would take the Bears if I had to. And it's worth noting that outside the Jacksonville games, I feel like the better team has covered in these lonely games. Like, remember last year, the Seahawks just dumpster fired the Raiders. Like, it wasn't even close. And I could see that. I could see this game going that way too. Like, this could be a blowout. This could be like 20-0 or 24-6, something like that. But this also could be close because of a garbage touchdown. So yeah. So it doesn't sound like either of us will be betting that heavily. But next game is the Cardinals are at the Bengals. The line opened up Bengals -4. Actually, on Monday, it was actually -4.5. It's gone down to 3.5. Actually, no, it's really now -3, -120. So it's gone all the way down to 3. There's a lot of public money on the Cardinals. So are you with the public here?
I am with the public, which scares me as usual. I watched the whole Monday night game, as I'm sure you did too, and just watching Andy Dalton get pummeled play after play. They couldn't move the ball at all. There was no sense of urgency. It just doesn't seem like this team's going to come together, and their blocking is so bad. You've talked about this for the last few weeks. Cordy Glenn's absence is definitely having a major impact on them. And if he can come back from that concussion at some point, and if it's this week, I would think the Bengals would have a shot at covering that type of spread, because we got to not have recency bias here. Remember, they almost beat the Bills on the road, which, granted, the Bills were looking ahead to the Patriots and had some other issues pop up in that game. But I still think the Cardinals +3 is the better side here. Both teams have bad defenses, though, so I'm not confident in this at all. But Kyler Murray's 2-2 against the spread to start his career. I think as an underdog, he might have a shot to earn the first win of Cliff Kingsbury's career. And, we'll find out which of these coaches we're more confident in Kingsbury or Taylor. But this is kind of just a mediocre all-around game. So I'm not super confident in the Cardinals, but they're my side for the moment.
Yeah, for me, it really depends on, as you said, Glenn. Like, he's huge in this game. If Glenn is out, I think I'll be on the Cardinals because Cincinnati's offensive line will still be down 3 starters. They just can't do anything. Like, and not having Glenn against Chandler Jones just seems like very problematic. Like, how are they going to block this guy with Andre Smith? Like, no, just forget about it. Like, it's not going to happen. So I'll definitely be on the. I think I'll be on the Cardinals if Glenn is out. But if Glenn plays. You made a good point. Like, there's recency bias with the Bengals. Everyone just saw them play miserably on Monday Night Football. But yeah, they almost beat the Bills, and not only that, they almost beat the Seahawks in Week 1. So yeah, this team has played close. And I against the Cardinals, Arizona's defense is just abysmal. They can't cover tight ends, or at least maybe they don't want to. Like, they just allow every single tight end to have huge games. So Tyler Eifert's going to have a big game. Their secondary sucks. They have no pass rush outside of Geno Atkins. So I think it really, like I said, it depends on Glenn. So I'm going to have an update on the site later in the week. So definitely check back for that. But for the sake of this podcast, I guess I'll be on the Cardinals as well, but I'm not too excited about it.
Yeah, that's fair. And my big takeaway from the Monday night game, honestly, was I can't believe Andre Smith is still in the league. I didn't even know he was. So that's not a good sign when your starting left tackle is a washed-up veteran who some people don't even know is in the league.
So bad. Yeah, it's amazing that he's in the league, and it just shows how desperate teams are for left tackles. We've had like three or four drafts in a row where it's been very scarce. Talent-wise at tackle, but seems like this upcoming draft is going to be better. So maybe Andre Smith will be out of the league because of this upcoming draft. So we'll see. Next game, Jaguars at the Panthers. Panthers open up -4. It's down to 3.5. So looks like actually sharp money on the Jaguars. It's not public money. What do you think about this game?
I think the Jaguars are the better side here. Believe it or not, in the battle of Gardner Minshew versus Kyle Allen that we all have been anticipating for so many weeks. The Jags are 3-1 against the spread. They just won as a road dog. And I think they match up well against the Panthers on offense. The Panthers don't have a very good run defense. I think they're 24th in the league against the run. They're number one against the pass, which is definitely something to keep an eye on. That might mean Minshew's going to struggle in this game. But if they can get Leonard Fournette going early, he's coming off a 220-yard game against the Denver Broncos. So I think that the Jaguars keep this close. I think with that 3.5 number, if it was 3, I'd be more apt to take the Panthers because they're the home team and they've played well under Kyle Allen, and just they just beat Houston, who's a better team than the Jaguars, I would say. But I'm just not sold on the fact that Kyle Allen's going to play well every week, and he didn't play well last week. He was really carried by the defense, and that was obviously against Houston, who has a good quarterback, but Houston doesn't have a run game. That's Carolina's weakness. So that's why I'm sort of leaning on the Jaguars a little bit here. I'm not going to put a lot on this game. I think I might go 1, maybe 2 units, depending on what the final line ends up being. But I'm going with Minshew here because every time I pick against him, he screws me over. So I don't really have a choice anymore.
Yeah, right. So I didn't cover the Jaguars game. It was Charlie Campbell was writing about it for the recaps page. So I decided to watch it last night to see what the hype was all about. And Minshew, I mean, he had some fantastic plays that I'm sure everyone has seen. You know, like when he was dancing in the pocket, like he avoided 3 players somehow, and he scored a touchdown. Like that was amazing. But in the first half, he was horrible. Like he was missing players. He took bad sacks. The offense had 4 3-and-outs. And then the difference was in the second half is that the Broncos lost Bradley Chubb, and the Broncos were already down 2 cornerbacks. So I don't have too much faith in Gardner Minshew doing much against the Panthers. You mentioned Carolina's number one pass defense. That's really going to give Minshew some problems, especially the 2 tackles that the Jaguars have. Maybe Juwan Taylor, the right tackle, maybe he'll be good in the future, but he's not good now. And Cam Robinson is a mess at left tackle. He had 3 penalties in the first half alone, and one of them was ruined a touchdown. He just sucks. And the Panthers have a great pass rush, so they're going to put a lot of heat on Minshew. On the other side of the ball, like Kyle Allen, he's like doing enough to survive, but he keeps fumbling, and one of these times it's really going to cost the Panthers. But at least he's getting the ball to Christian McCaffrey. And I think McCaffrey against the Jaguar linebackers, they're really missing Telvin Smith. And they have trouble covering the space. So I think that the Panthers might be able to move the ball a little bit better than the Jaguars. So I think I'm inclined to take the Panthers. I'm not going to bet this game at 3.5. I think that's crazy. But if it's 3, I think I'll have interest on Carolina. I made this line Panthers -6. So, it kind of makes me wonder why I'm not more excited about the Panthers, and it's because of Kyle Allen and his fumbling. But if you think about it, the Panthers, with better quarterbacking, and I think you would agree that Kyle Allen is better than Cam Newton when Newton can't run at all and was horrible in week 1. I think they beat the Rams with Kyle Allen, or maybe it was a 3-point game with Newton. And then week 2, Newton couldn't do anything, and yet the Panthers almost won at the end. So if the Panthers are 3-1 right now or 4-0, like what would the spread be? So I think the Panthers are a little undervalued here, but I'm not too crazy about this. I don't think I'm going to bet this game.
Yeah, no, and I get the case for Carolina. And like I said, if this was a -3 game, I'd have a lot more interest in it. But I've just, like with the Raiders, Gardner Minshew is just he's being my kryptonite this year. So I'm going to trust him this week. And if he fails me, then I'll go back to continuing to bet on Kyle Allen, because when I bet on him, I'm 2-0. So, all these superstition things I have are kind of coming to a head in this game. I think this is going to be a kind of fun game to watch too, because it's just 2 dudes who are like, they were never supposed to be starting in this one. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, Minshew is always exciting. Like he has his horrible moments, but he is exciting. And then the Panthers, I have them as a 60-1 Super Bowl pick at the beginning of the year. And I assume Newton was going to be healthy, but the way their defense is playing, I feel like they can keep winning games, and then Newton maybe comes back healthy, and then they can make a run. So hopefully that happens. Next game, Vikings at the Giants. This line opened up Vikings -6 down to 5.5. a ton of money ton of public money, I should say, on the Vikings. Are you with the public here?
I am with the public here. I know Kirk Cousins just played horribly against the Bears, but he always plays bad against good teams. And we don't know if the Giants are a good team. I would assume no. I don't think they have a good defense. They just shut down the Redskins offense, which isn't much of a feat when their best playmaker and three of their four best offensive linemen are not playing. So I don't put much stock into that. I don't see why the Giants would be able to necessarily cover this. I know Daniel Jones has played well, but he has not played a good defense yet. Played the Bucks, whose defense looked solid, but only against the Panthers with an injured Cam Newton. They've allowed at least, I think, 30 points in every other game they played this year. And, I think Jones had his issues against the Redskins last week. And even though he's 2-0 against the spread, I just don't trust that he's going to play well against a pretty solid Vikings defense. They're not quite as good as they were a couple years ago, but they're still really good. So I'm going to be on the Vikings at the -5, -5.5 number. Again, this is another game that I'm not super sold on because Daniel Jones could, all of a sudden just be like, yeah, I am the next version of Carson Wentz. So I may not end up betting this one, but right now, if I had to, I'd put a unit on the Vikings.
Okay, I don't know if you heard that noise in the background. That was my my landline phone. I'm like one of the 3 people left in America who has a landline. I don't know why. No one calls. It's all telemarketers. I don't know why I have it.
We have one at my house too. Okay. I've been petitioning to get rid of it for 3 years, but I can't get my dad to get rid of it. He won't. Do it.
I put it in because I was like, oh, I can have a fax machine this way, but I never set up my fax machine. So I don't know. I guess I should get rid of it too. But for this game, so we're going to be on opposite sides. I actually like the Giants a lot. I think this line's way too high. And I was kind of questioning myself because the number I came up with was Giants -1.5. And I was like, that can't be right? So I had to go to my other metrics, and DVOA says this should be pick 'em. So it's kind of close. The computer model I use says Vikings -4, which is still good enough to cover. So I think this line's inflated because people for some reason like the Vikings a lot, not just in this game, but in general. And yeah, I know the Kirk Cousins thing, they expect them to choke, but people remember the blowout wins they had at home against Atlanta and Oakland. But that was at home. The Vikings play so much differently on the road. And I just think this line's way too high, and Daniel Jones is playing very well right now, and he has a lot of weapons. They get Golden Tate back this week, in addition to Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, and the Vikings struggle to defend the slot. So I think they have 2 guys who can play the slot. I'm kind of curious to see which of them does. So and I just think Minnesota's mediocre overall. Like, their offensive line is so bad. They can't block. I don't know if the Giants can necessarily take advantage of that completely, but I think there's a good chance they might be able to, considering how bad the Vikings are blocking. And for a mediocre team to be favored by 5.5 on the road just seems way too excessive. So I like the value with the Giants. And also, I think it's worth noting that Pat Shurmur was the coordinator of the Vikings a couple years ago. So he might have some insight on what the Vikings are doing. Like, granted, Kirk Cousins wasn't there, but they still had a lot of their players who are still on the roster right now. So I think that could help. The one concern I have with the Giants is you have a rookie quarterback going against Mike Zimmer, which sounds like terrifying, especially after what Zimmer did to Sam Darnold last year. But then again, Josh Allen went to Minnesota and destroyed the Vikings in week 3 last year. So you never know. I think I like Daniel Jones. He's going to make a mistake here or there, but he also completed 9 passes in a row last week. He's good. I mean, he's a good quarterback and he has weapons. So I think they can keep this game close, maybe even win outright. So I like the Giants for 3 units.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm going to stick to the Vikings again very tentatively. I really don't like this game very much, but maybe Pat Shurmur will figure out a way to frustrate Stephon Diggs enough into demanding a trade, and then they'll go out and get him. So that'd be nice for Daniel Jones, have him, Golden Tate, and Sterling Shepard. So we'll see if the Vikings can take advantage of that Giants pass defense, because I think if they're going to win this game big, that's the only way that they do it. And again, I'm not super confident in that, but it all depends on what we think of the Giants. Can they, if they're a 500 team, Kirk Cousins is going to lose this game. If they're worse than a 500 team, and I mean overall, not current record, if they're worse than a 500 team,
Yeah. Yeah. Like that. The Giants' pass defense is interesting because they've been horrible this year, but Janoris Jenkins, he's played terribly, but he's a good talent. Like, I don't know why he would be this bad. And he played well last week. Like, granted, it was the easiest matchup you'll have all year, but maybe if he keeps playing like better, like he did in week 4, not like he did in week 3. I think they'll have a chance to stop some offenses. So there's that. I mean, it would help if DeAndre Baker knew how to play football, but I don't know if that's the case. Patriots at the Redskins. Patriots open up -13. It's up to -15, even 15.5 in some books. Of course, this is going to be the most lopsided bet game of the week. Everyone's on the Patriots. Like almost 90% of the money is on New England. So the house is going to take a beating if the Patriots cover. So are you with the public here?
I am. This is the clash of the two teams I cover. They are going in complete opposite directions. The Redskins, it's a shock that Jay Gruden is still the head coach of the team at this point. And the only reason I can think of that he is that they don't want the interim head coach's first game to be against the Patriots. And the only other reason is because Daniel Snyder doesn't like to fire people in season at the head coach position. So they just got crushed by the Giants. They don't know who's going to play quarterback. I mean, you're going to probably see Colt McCoy start this game. And last we saw Colt McCoy, he broke his leg against the Eagles, and the team tried to rush him back, and they ended up making his rehab instead of 6 weeks over 8 months. So this team is just a mess. The Patriots have their share of warts. My colleagues Phil Perry and Tom Curran did a good job of outlining their offensive struggles on NBCSportsBoston.com the past couple weeks. But still, they have an elite defense that's going to contain that Washington offense and make it really easy for the Patriots offense to get good field position and just operate as they're meant to. I could see this being a 30-point win for the Patriots. They're going to want to prove that near disaster in Buffalo, or not near disaster, but they nearly lost in Buffalo and couldn't do much on offense. This is their opportunity to say, hey, we're still here. We're still really good. We still have the offense. So I'm seeing something along the lines of a 34-3 game this week. I have no faith in the Redskins, so I'll be betting 4 units on the Patriots.
Well, I think if you have a chance to start your franchise quarterback, you might as well bring your journeyman quarterback with a popgun arm. Like, why not? Just start him over him. It makes all the sense in the world, right? Like, and rush him back from injury while you're at it.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts how they've handled the quarterback position. And just, Case Keenum started the year doing so okay. Like, not well. His numbers were good, but he was so okay. And then he bombed last week. Haskins was terrible. And then now it's like, all right, well, we got to play McCoy now. That's the only guy we haven't tried. So,
wasn't Keenum in a walking boot on Wednesday? Like, I don't know. Why did he play? I mean, he clearly wasn't 100%.
All injuries. They just have no idea what they're doing. They gave their medical staff like one of the awards, like their training staff, like an award for their performance after having at least 24 people on IR in back-to-back years and then rushing people back. It's a nightmare over there from what I've seen. Obviously, I haven't actually seen anything at practice or talked to anyone, but it's kind of rough to watch it unfold.
It's pretty bad, and I don't blame Trent Williams at all for sitting out, not at all. After seeing this, I would like to make I'd like to make a case for the Redskins because I'm actually going to be on them. If there's some qualifying things here, I might change my pick, and it would really depend on, first of all, what the quarterback situation is. If I hear Keenum's healthy and he's going to start, then I would like that. I don't think Colt McCoy excites me too much. If it's Haskins, I think I'd still favor the Redskins there. But the main thing here is the offensive line. Brandon Scherf and Chase Roulier were both out last week. So the Redskins, in addition to Williams, they're missing 3 of their starters on the offensive line. So if Roulier and Scherf come back, they'll only be down one guy, and so I think that would be a huge deal. So if those guys come back this week and we get some clarity at quarterback, I think I'll be on the Redskins. First of all, Tom Brady doesn't seem healthy to me. He's struggling with a calf injury. Actually, an emailer Darby, he sent me an email in week 3. It's like actually it was the day before the week 4 games. And he said, check out what happened week 3 to Tom Brady. He injured his calf in the second quarter, and he wasn't the same afterward. And I looked at that, and it was like too late for the Super Contest, unfortunately. But I looked at that, and like Brady wasn't quite himself after that, and he didn't look comfortable last week. So combined with that, and also the fact that the Patriots signed Cody Kessler, kind of indicates to me that Brady's not 100%. So I think that's an issue. Another thing is that the Patriots play in 4 days after this. Granted, it's only against the Giants, but they still have to play in 4 days, and they're coming off a big win against Buffalo. This game means absolutely nothing to them. They probably think they can just show up and win. I obviously, like, Brady and Belichick are not going to have that attitude, but the other players I think might. And so I don't know if they're going to take the Redskins seriously. And if the Redskins are full strength outside of like Trent Williams, obviously, I think this line's too high. I made this line Patriots -7, which seems too low. But DVOA says it should be Patriots -7.5. So I think this line's like way too inflated because the public wants to bet on the Patriots, and so the public might be right if the Redskins are missing all their linemen and they start Colt McCoy or an injured Case Keenum. And I can see your Patriots pick hitting, and I might even change my pick late in the week. But right now, I think there's some potential in the Redskins covering.
Yeah, no, I can see that case. My thing is, I no longer trust the Redskins to give accurate injury diagnosis or whatever they say. Like last week, they expected that Terry McLaurin was going to play. He didn't play. So if they say that Brandon Sheriff and Chase Roulier are going to play, I'm going to have to wait until like Sunday and when the inactives come out to actually believe them. But I can see the case being made. Like we've said, the Patriots offense hasn't been the same, and I'm going to have to go back and look at that Tom Brady play because if that's the case, that would explain at least some of the issues he had last week against Buffalo. So we'll see what happens. But either way, this is a fun game for me. Both the teams I cover just coming to a head. A rare case of an undefeated team playing a defeated team when I both cover them. So pretty cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. It's I think it's worth checking out. Brady only had 9 points last week. The other 7 came off the block punt. So yeah, if Brady's not 100%, then asking him to cover 15 points might be too much. Timothy J in the chat says, agree, the Redskins don't know what they're doing. I think that's definitely the consensus here on the podcast. And I can't imagine Jay Gruden lasting too much longer. So I think your bet's safe. And I can't really think of another coach who's going to be fired soon. Like, can you? I don't think no one really stands out right now, at least.
The only guy that I could think is like Dan Quinn, but things would have to get much, much worse than they've already been for the Falcons. And I don't think because he got them to a Super Bowl, I don't think they would fire him in season. I can't see that happening unless they're like going to target Lincoln Riley or something, which I don't think Riley's coming to the next level anyway, but you never know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think Quinn gets fired during the season, maybe after the season if they're like 3-13 or 4-12, maybe. Anyway, next game, Jets at the Eagles. Eagles open up -14, actually just dropped to -13.5. It looks like a lot of money on the Jets, actually. So that's public money moving this down. It's rare to see the public on a big underdog like this. So are you with the public here?
Apparently, I'm just a man of the public this week because I am with the public this time. I just think this might be a bit of an overreaction to the Eagles beating the Packers. I mean, the Eagles looked really good on offense against the Packers, but they're also not healthy in the secondary at all. I mean, they just re-signed Orlando Scandrick, who has been on, I think, 4 teams in the last 3 years and just hasn't played much. And I know the Jets aren't very good. I know they don't have much, but they have Le'Veon Bell. They have Robbie Anderson. the left side of their offensive line can be okay. It's not necessarily going to be good, but they also covered a massive spread against the Patriots, and they're coming off a bye week, so they should be healthier. Those injuries to Quinnen Williams, CJ Mosley, those could be, if not lessened, completely gone. So I think if they get those guys back, they'll be able to limit the Eagles a little bit, keep this closer than people think. And the other thing is the Eagles could just completely overlook the Jets. They have games coming up against the Vikings and Cowboys. So I know the Eagles don't have a great record right now. I think are they 2-2 right now, I think? Yeah. So, I mean, they still need the win, but they could just write off the Jets. And, if it stays close, then the Jets cover pretty easily. So I'm on the Jets here. I'll probably put a couple units on it if the line doesn't keep moving down. If the line moves down, I'll have to reassess. But I just think that the Jets will have a plan of attack and at least keep this close.
Yeah, Eagles are 2-2. They'd be 4-0 if it wasn't for a couple of drops by backup receivers. But that issue is behind them because Alshon Jeffrey was back week 4, and there's a chance that Deshaun Jackson plays this week, which would just take Philadelphia's offense over the top. I mean, they Carson Wentz in the pocket, he's not getting pressured at all. He has a great offensive line. And with all of his receivers back, like I don't think we've yet to see what this offense can do. Like we got a taste of it in the second half against the Redskins, but that was the first game, and so they're a little rusty. They didn't play in the preseason, so I think if everyone's healthy, I think this offense could be one of the best in the NFL, like right up there with the Chiefs. The problem is their secondary, as you said. Their secondary is a mess, especially at cornerback. Like it seems like guys go down left and right. But I don't think the Jets are equipped to take advantage of that with Luke Falk. I expect Falk to start this game. As someone who had mono in his 20s, I could confidently say that Sam Darnold's not ready to play this week. Like you might think he's ready to play, but you can't work out when you have mono, like because your spleen could burst. And so if he's not working out, like his muscle mass is definitely depleted a little bit, and he's not in shape, and I just don't think he'd be ready to play. And so I think Darnold could come back like week 7, and if that's the case, if it's Luke Falk again, I'm definitely going to be on the Eagles. It just seems like way too much of just the one-sided matchup here. I can't see Luke Falk doing much, especially behind that offensive line. It can't pass protect, and the Eagles can get to the quarterback. And Falk has no arm at all. Like he should not be in the NFL. He can throw like 5-yard passes, and like with that sort of like check down approach, if you have like a false start, your drive's over. Like that's it. And that's all it's going to take. And if Falk starts and CJ Mosley's out, which sounds like it's a possibility, we'll see. I'm definitely going to be in the Eagles. If Mosley plays, I'm not going to bet as highly. But if Falk is out and Mosley's out, the Eagles are going to be like a 2 or 3 in a play for me.
Yeah, I guess I'm just on board with the Washington State quarterbacks this week just being great. Yeah, I got a lot of faith in Luke Falk. Well, not actually, of course, but yeah, no, I have minimal confidence in the Jets as a team. I just think that the Eagles, they've fallen behind early in some games. So I don't know if that necessarily happens this week against the Jets, but I think if Le'Veon Bell can get going, which that's probably the best way this offense gets going with Luke Falk throwing him the ball constantly, that could end up working. But again, I could totally see the case for the Eagles. And this is just another game that I am fairly not confident in, but I need to make some bets on something. So this is one of them.
Nice. TJ in the chat says he needs Jets plus 27 to pick them. And it's funny he says that because my predicted score for this game is 27-3. So I'm right there with him on that one. All right, next game, Buccaneers at the Saints. Saints open up -5.5. It's down to 3. Looks like sharp money on Tampa. So not necessarily an overreaction by the public here, although the advanced spread in this game was Saints -6.5. So definitely a ton of line movement based on one game. So what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I like the Saints here. This is one of the picks that I'm more confident in on this slate. Bridgewater's just so good against the spread during his career. I think his last 20 starts, he's like 16-4 against the spread, which is insane to think about. But he's just efficient, and he helps the team around him to play well. He doesn't necessarily do anything flashy, but that's how the Saints have been able to stay afloat, is he hasn't made any massive mistakes so far. The Bucks, the money seems to be moving as an overreaction, in my opinion. Though if it's sharp money, I'm a little skeptical of what I initially thought. But they just put 55 on the Rams. But as you and I both talked about, the Rams are overrated. They're not nearly as good as the team that went to the Super Bowl last year, and they're still also the team that shouldn't have gone to the Super Bowl. I will note that at every possible turn. So I like the Saints. The only concern I have is the Bucks have a really good run defense. I think they're actually the best in the NFL. So if they can figure out a way to bottle up Alvin Kamara and make Bridgewater win this game by himself, I think that that could be a problem for the Saints. But at the same time, their defense just held the Cowboys to 10 points. I'm imagining that they'll be able to control the Bucks offense and make life difficult on Jameis Winston, Ronald Jones, and friends, even though they have a solid receiving core.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on the Saints as well. So yeah, it's nice to have an agreement in a game in which we both seem confident in. So yeah, I like the Saints. I'm going to be on there for 2 or 3 units. As I said, the advanced spread on this game was Saints minus 6.5, and for a line movement of 3 points, or actually 3.5 points, for a game in which there's no injury, is just way too much. Like, it's only one game. Like, why would there be this much of a line movement? It just seems like way too much of a reaction. And for it to be a 3, I think 3 is huge. If it was 3.5, I wouldn't have nearly as much interest. But as I say before, like 3 is the most likely outcome of any football game. And so if you're getting 3, if you're getting -3, that's huge. So yeah, I like the Saints here as just a great value play. Like, there's not much else here. I think, like, matchup wise, like it kind of makes sense that the Saints are, favored by a little bit more than, or they should be favored by a little bit more than 3. There's nothing else really going on outside of the sharp action going on Tampa. But there's just so much value. I can't pass up with the Saints. And even still, like, I made the line Saints minus 5.5. DVOA says the Saints should be minus 6.5. The computer I use says the Saints should be minus 6. So everything's pointing toward the Saints winning by like a score of like 31-24 or something like that. And so, or maybe if it's lower scoring, like 23-17, something like that. So I think the Saints are the right side here. Not crazy about it. And I would like to see a -3, -110, because it's -3, -120 right now. But if at -110, I think I might be on them for 3 units. Otherwise, probably 2 units.
Yeah, and I had an initial bet of 2 units, but like you said, if it goes down to the -110 number, I'll definitely consider a 3rd unit there, because I just think also playing at the Superdome is just such a huge advantage for the Saints. Those New Orleans fans, they are awesome. I love watching games at the Superdome. They're really cool.
Yeah, I do too. And I believe this was the site of the Jameis eat the W game, which was a disaster for the Buccaneers. So maybe he has some bad memories from that game. So we'll see. All right, next game, Falcons at Texans. This line open up Texans -3.5 up to 5. It's kind of equal action. So who do you like in this game?
Well, if you've had to pick 2 teams in the league that I never wanted to see play each other this year, these would be the 2. I was all on the Falcons to start the year, and they have not lived up to expectations at all. The Texans, I constantly want to fade because they're so inconsistent. I mean, they lost to Kyle Allen last week, which, again, no offense to Kyle Allen, but the Texans had Deshaun Watson and put up 10 points, and they lost to Kyle Allen. Like, that's insane. I would have liked the Falcons in this side if I thought the Texans would be looking forward to their game with the Chiefs. But because the Texans lost a very winnable game against the Kyle Allen-led Panthers, I think that kind of complicates this a little more. That was the only real edge I saw when breaking down these 2 teams. I think the Falcons are on the verge of a collapse. I think if they keep playing poorly and the defense keeps performing poorly, players are going to quit on Dan Quinn. As we mentioned earlier, I don't think he lasts the season if they keep playing this poorly. So I'm leaning towards Texans -5. I don't like the value. I don't like the line. I'm not going to play this because part of me still thinks that the Falcons could end up beating them if the Texans are too focused on the Chiefs and Bill O'Brien just gets too cocky. But I really truly think there's nothing to like about this game.
Bill O'Brien is the worst. He's such a bad coach. When your team's moving the ball like for the first time all game, there's nothing like calling a trick play for your receiver to throw the pass way across the field in the red zone. What a great move by Bill O'Brien. And then to top that off, you have a clear catch that you have to challenge, because timeouts are worthless in the second half. You absolutely have to challenge. The prospect of laying points with Bill O'Brien at this point is just kind of nauseating to me. And I actually on the site I have the Texans down for 1 unit because I think there's some line value. I made the spread Texans -6.5. The computer says Texans -6 is the right number, so we get the key number of 6 is kind of a little significant. So I do like there's slight value with the Texans, and then the way the Falcons are playing, they can't be competitive right now in meaningful action against most teams, I think. And part of that is their offensive line. Well, we've talked about it every single week. They just, for some reason, they can't block. And the new guys they acquired have been terrible, but the mainstays that we expected to play well are not playing well. So you have no one playing well on the offensive line, and they have to go against Whitney Merciless and JJ Watt, which is just too much of an advantage for Houston. So I think everything points toward the Texans here, except for Bill O'Brien. And also, one thing I'd be scared about if I were betting the Texans heavily outside of O'Brien is the potential of a backdoor cover. We saw it week 2 against the Colts, or was it week 3? No, it was week 3 against the Colts, where the Falcons were down by 17 points or 21 points. I think it was 17, and then they scored 2 touchdowns to make the margin 3. And the Colts still covered because the line was less than 3, but here it's 5, and I could see the Texans being up 17 or 14 or something like that, and then Matt Ryan just having a couple backdoor scores and getting the margin to less than 5. That could definitely happen. So I'm on the Texans right now, officially on the site for a unit, but I may not end up betting in this game. So we'll see. If the line gets to 4, that might make me more excited. But 5 is kind of like no man's land, and I just not crazy to bet on Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, I think this is my least favorite line of the year so far. There's just so much that I don't want to deal with in this game.
Yeah. If you're watching the chat, I just figured out how to show comments. So that's pretty cool.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. He's the toughest game to bet on. So there we go. I can just show the comments instead of repeating them. By accident, I just clicked. Anyway, the last of the early afternoon games, Bills at Titans. There's no line on this game because Josh Allen's in concussion protocol, so we can't really handicap this game. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I forgot. I somehow forgot about the Josh Allen concussion, but I like the Bills in this one. Depending on the line, I think there's a +3 or Titans -3 line still available on Bovada right now. Unless I'm doing that completely wrong, I like the Bills at a +3 number. I like them in general in this game. I think they match up well against the Titans. Their defense is going to give them problems. Marcus Mariota does not do well under pressure right now, and his offensive line will be better getting Taylor Lewan back. So that does have an impact here. But I think that the Bills have the better team. They're going on a bye after this week, so they'll be motivated to prove that they're still a powerhouse in the AFC after coming up just short against New England. They're going to want to win ahead of that bye. I think they have the personnel to match up against Tennessee and make this very difficult. So I'd probably take the Bills. If we're going to pick them, I would maybe have some pause there, but if the Titans are favored in this game, even without Josh Allen, I still like the Bills because of their defense.
Yeah, you're right about Bovada. I just logged in, and there's a +3, which is weird because there's no line on this game anywhere else, not at any other sports book. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. So if you have inside information, just go to Bovada, make an account, and bet a lot of money on it. I am not. I don't know what to make this game yet, obviously, because we don't know what's going to happen with Josh Allen. If Allen plays, I think I'm with you on this one. If it's +3, if that's what the line turns out to be, I think the Bills defense should be able to keep this close. And, the Titans are coming off a big win. And I think they might be a little overconfident. They're getting Taylor Lewan back. And, but I don't know if Lewan's going to be like fully in shape. So we'll see about that. If Josh Allen sits out, I imagine the spread's going to be like Titans by 6 or 7. And I will probably be on the Titans in that case, but I don't think I'm going to bet on that game because it would just be a fade on Matt Barkley, who's just a terrible quarterback. So I'm just going to be fading him. But to lay 6 or 7 points with the Titans doesn't sound too exciting either because their offense is so sluggish and they're playing a good defense. And the Bills could keep it close. Like it could be like 10-6 or something like that, like something stupid. Even if it's that score in the middle of the fourth quarter, like, and Matt Barkley's driving, like I could see him throwing a pick 6 and just ending the game and the Titans cover. So I wouldn't want to bet on Matt Barkley, but if Josh Allen's playing, I'd probably be on the Bills, but I'm not completely sure. Anyway, that's it for the early afternoon games. Before we get to the late ones, you can go to DraftKings, DraftKings.com, enter in promo code Walter Football. That's one word, Walter Football, for a bonus at their first deposit. So, yeah, as I said before, you get to play contests for free and you get to help the podcast. So why not? And it's fun too. I feel like it makes games more exciting than traditional fantasy football. Like I've been playing fantasy football since like 1995, or like it's been forever. I was talking to my friend Kenny, who I do the fantasy podcast with, and he and I both agree. Like we used to check our fantasy scores all the time. And now we just check our DFS, how we're doing in DFS and DraftKings. I didn't even know how I did in my fantasy leagues until after the Monday night game. Like I just didn't even bother. I was just watching DraftKings. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm still pretty intensely into one of my leagues because it's a family league. But I love DFS. The nice thing about that is even when you don't have players going in a specific games, especially on like Thursday night and the Monday nights, you can play one of those captain-based lineups and just have at least a little something going on. You get players to root for as opposed to having to pick a team or pick a side. So I like both. I will do basically anything. So, but that family league's still pretty intense, and I'm 1-3 in it right now. Not doing too well. My kickers really failed me the first 2 weeks. Defense this week. And I made a trade today to get Le'Veon Bell, so hopefully that'll fix things.
Yeah, I hope so. Good luck in the future. I'm all over the board in fantasy. Like some of my teams are 3-1. I'm 4-0 in one league, but then I have a couple leagues where I'm 1-3 because just devastated by injuries. Like one league I took Tyreek Hill in the first round. Another league I had Saquon Barkley. Like it's just a mess. But in the leagues where my rosters are healthy, it's doing well. So. First, there are only 2 late afternoon games for some reason. Broncos at the Chargers. The Chargers open up -6.5. It's still 6.5. Looks like the public is evenly split on this game. So I like this game a lot. So I'm wondering if you're going to be on the same side.
I probably don't like this game as much as you, but I'm favoring the Broncos right here. I think they need to get a win. Vic Fangio's not necessarily in danger at this point, but if he can't get the team to play better at some point, then there's going to be some sort of talk about his seat getting hot because everyone thought the Broncos' problems were with Vance Joseph. But if Vic Fangio can't prove that he's an upgrade over him, I don't know if he's going to last very long in this role. So at a +6.5 number, I like the Broncos there. But both of these teams have not been very good this year. They're both 1-3 against the spread. Chargers are 1-2-1, but again, I count the one push they had. If you locked in early, it was a loss for them. So I count them as a 1-3. And I just there's not really any decided advantage here aside from the fact that the Chargers are flying from across the country. So even though it's a home game for them, they kind of get screwed because they don't have really good fans and they're coming off of a pretty rough road trip type from Miami all the way back to LA. So I like the Broncos in this game. I'm not going to bet heavily on it. I might put a couple units on it though. I think they should be able to cover this type of spread. I'm not super convinced that they're going to win the game at all. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking about this one. Is that the side you're on?
Yeah, I like Denver a lot. You mentioned the flight. That's interesting. I didn't even factor that in until you started talking about it, and then I thought for a second I was like, wait, they've had a lot of cross country flights. So week one they're at home, whatever. Week two they fly to Detroit, so Eastern time zone. They fly back. Week three play at home again. Week four they fly to Miami. Now that week five they fly back home. It's like a lot of mileage there. So that's not even something I even factored in. So that makes me even more confident in this game. My biggest thing is that I think this spread's way too high. I made this line Broncos Chargers -3, and so you might think that's too high, but let me ask you this: so the Broncos are 0-4, obviously, but two of their losses came because of roughing the passer penalties when the opposing team was driving at the end of the game. If those penalties didn't happen, they'd be 2-2 right now. And so what would the spread be if the 2-2 Broncos were at the 2-2 Chargers? What would this line be?
Probably -2 Chargers, I would think.
Yeah,
Something
something like
along those
that.
lines.
Yeah, something like around -3, not above 6. So yeah, this line's like way too high. The Chargers don't have a good home field advantage, the worst home field advantage in the NFL. And I think I assume that there's going to be more Broncos fans in the stands than Charger fans. Broncos fans travel well. It's not a far trip. And plus, they're going to be Denver fans living in LA who are going to go to the game. So it's just another advantage to Denver. I think motivation favors Denver as well. This is the absolute must-win game for them because no team has gone to the playoffs after starting 0-5. But I think Vic Fangio could sell them on, one team started 0-4 and made the playoffs. That was in 1992. I should remember that team to date myself. It was the Chargers, and they played the Chargers. So Vic Fangio could sell them on that. They like this is our last chance. Let's go all out and let's win this game. And so I think the Chargers are going to be, or Broncos are going to be more motivated. And the Chargers aren't that good. They're not good enough to be favored by this much. They have injuries. Melvin Gordon might be out. And you mentioned it. If assuming that you had the right number for the Colts game, this Chargers team has not covered the spread this year, except for the Miami game. And as we all know, you can't really factor in the Dolphins games at all. So, yeah, I just think I love the Broncos here. The one concern I have is that they could be missing Kareem Jackson, which would mean they're down 2 cornerbacks against Phillip Rivers. If Jackson plays, this is a slam dunk 5-unit play for me. If Jackson's out, I still like the Broncos, but not nearly as much, like maybe 3 units.
Yeah, I think I'll probably come up and match your bet then, however many units you play, because you've sold me on it. The motivational factor for Fangio is there. I just love that idea of him saying, "Look, the last team to go 0-4 make the playoffs for the Chargers. We beat them today. We could match that. That's divisional rival thing." And I do like Fangio as a coach. I think he's had a little bit of hard luck to start the year, as you mentioned, and I mentioned this again. He was my coach of the year pick. My year-long picks this year have been garbage, which is it's like a 5-year cycle. I have 4 good years, 1 terrible year, and this is the terrible year. But yeah, no, I'm thinking the Broncos will keep it close. So I'll probably come up to at least 3 units and match you on this one. This is probably one of the better games on the slate.
Well, if they make a run and make the playoffs, he might be coach of the year. So we'll see. We have a question, which you can see right there. Thoughts about Flacco with Denver. I guess that's pertaining to, obviously how he's done, but like in the future, like, do you think Flacco is going to be the quarterback next year?
I can't imagine if they continue going at the rate they're going that he'd be the quarterback. But they also have Drew Lock, so we don't really know what he is. But this upcoming draft is just stacked at quarterback between Tua Tagovailoa, Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason, and Justin Herbert. How could I forget him? So those are 4 guys that could go in the first round. And there are a number of other guys out there that have some potential on day 2. Joe Burrow's played well this year. I kind of like him. So I would think that unless Joe Flacco really steps up and starts playing better, they'll probably look to replace him. This year, he hasn't been bad particularly, but he just hasn't been anything above average, I would say. That's my takeaway from what I've seen him do.
Yeah, I agree. He hasn't been bad. Like you can't put this on Flacco. The offensive line's not doing well. The defense can't stop the run. All of a sudden, Leonard Fournette just went crazy. And they've had some bad luck, as you said, at the end of games. Like they could easily be 2-2 right now, and no one would be talking about replacing Flacco. So I think Flacco's been not great, not bad. It's kind of like mediocre. Sometimes it looks like he's playing in slow motion, though. Like it's kind of like this guy is just, I don't know how much longer he has, but it really depends on how they finish. So if they bottom out and they continue to have injuries and they're finished like 3-13, 4-12, then I think they'll consider a quarterback. But if they're in like the 6-10, 7-9 range, I think they bring back Flacco for one more year. And Drew Lock is obviously still there. Drew Lock looked terrible in the preseason, but we've seen quarterbacks look awful in the preseason and play better in the regular season. Gardner Minshew being one. I mean, he was terrible in the preseason, and now he's doing okay. So they have to give Lock a chance unless they can get one of these blue chip guys that are coming out. So we'll see about that. So the last of the late afternoon games, the Packers are at the Cowboys, and I guess this is why there are only 2 games because everyone's going to be watching this one. The Cowboys open up -4; it's down to 3.5. I considered locking this in actually, but I decided to hold off. But I do love one side, so I'm curious to see if you're on the same side.
I'm on the Packers in this one. I think the Cowboys are pretty overrated. Like who have they beat? They beat the Giants without Eli Manning. They beat the Redskins and they beat the Dolphins. And then they just got shut down by the Saints defense, which has been not great this year. It's been good, but not great. So I don't know how well they're going to play against the Packers team that has been very good this year, but is coming off a disappointing loss to the Eagles at home. I think the Packers are going to have motivation to go out and prove like, hey, that one game was an aberration. We're better than that. And they have the extra 3 days of rest after playing on a Thursday. I know this is a road game, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter. They still have Aaron Rodgers. Their defense is much better. The only concern I would have in this one is them containing Zeke Elliott because they've played so poorly against the run against Denver and Philadelphia. If Mike Pettin doesn't have something coordinated to try to slow that down in this game, I could see it becoming a bit of a problem. But at the 3.5 number, I like the Packers. I think this is going to be a close game. So I'm willing to bet 3 or 4 units on them. But I would look to lock that in soon if the line keeps moving, trending in the way it's going.
I like this clicking on comments thing. It's working out for me. It's pretty neat. I had no idea you could do that. I agree with you and TJ saying the Cowboys are overrated. You mentioned the quarterbacks they've beaten. So the ones they've beaten, right? Eli Manning, Case Keenum, and Josh Rosen. They're a combined 0-7 right now, and 2 of them have been benched. The best quarterback they played this year, except for Daniel Jones in garbage time, is Teddy Bridgewater. So it's kind of bleak here. Now they have to play against Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be able to exploit some issues they have in the secondary. I just think that's just way too much of an advantage for the Packers. And so I like Green Bay a good deal here. I think this line's too high. I made this line Cowboys -1.5. So this is on the wrong side of 3. And we're getting Aaron Rodgers with more than a field goal against a non-elite quarterback. So that seems great to me. Like it seems like way too good to pass up. And also, the Packers have had extra time to prepare for this game. They lost on national TV on last Thursday, and they've had a while to think about it. They've had more time to game plan for the Cowboys, and so I think they're a great side here. Obviously, the couple concerns is that Devontae Adams and Brian Bulaga might miss this game, but those 2 are kind of why I haven't locked this in. Not because I'm worried that they're not going to play. Like even if they sit out, I'm still going to be on the Packers. But if they're ruled out, I wonder if this line's going to move up. So I wonder if we could, maybe if they're both out, maybe we can get a +4. And so I think that would be nice. I'm not too concerned about their injuries. Obviously they're great players, but usually a team could scheme around one player being out at a position. If Devontae Adams were out and Marcus Valdez-Scantling was out, I think that'd be a bigger deal because they'd be down 2 receivers. Same thing with the offensive line. Like if they're missing 2 linemen, that'd be a huge deal. But they're only going to be down 1 lineman and 1 receiver potentially. So I think that's fine, especially with more time to prepare for this game. So the Packers are one of my top plays. I like them for 5 units. So I guess I forgot to mention I like the Broncos for 5 units as well if Kareem Jackson plays. So this late afternoon slate is something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid slate. There are 2 teams that are clearly the ones that you should be on their side. Again, the one concern with the Packers you brought up is the injuries. I'd be more worried about Brian Bulaga solely because of how good the Cowboys pass rush has been so far. But Aaron Rodgers knows how to avoid the pass rush, how to escape problems and get the ball downfield. So I have more faith in him being able to succeed without Adams, obviously, and Bulaga. He's found a way to get around Bulaga being out so many times before. So yeah. I don't anticipate that being a major issue.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Speaking of teams with injuries, Colts at the Chiefs. This line opened up Chiefs -9. It's gone up to 11. I don't know if that might be sharp action. Maybe. The slight lean on the Chiefs, public wise. So who do you like in this game?
I have very tentatively have the Colts. I'm not betting on this one as we wait for the key injury news to come out. T.Y. Hilton and Darius Leonard are the big names, one on both sides of the ball. You've been don't at +11. All it takes is 1 backdoor touchdown, and Jacoby Brissett is actually the only quarterback in the league so far this year to throw multiple touchdowns in every game. So if you need a random stat that doesn't really have an impact on a game, there's one for you. But I think +11 is just a little bit high for me on the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been good, very good this year, obviously, but they just they almost lost to the Lions. And again, the Lions are a good team, so that's nothing to be ashamed of or anything. But I think the Colts also have a good roster. Depending on the injury issues, I like that +11 number. If both Hilton and Leonard are out, I would definitely reconsider that, though.
Yeah, it's big. You can. I don't know how people are betting in this game unless they have inside information. Like it's those 2 guys are so important to this game. Like you touched on Leonard. The Colts can't stop tight ends at all, and with Malik Hooker out as well, like the whole middle of their defense is awful, and that just screams like Patrick Mahomes throwing to Travis Kelce over and over again. Like I can see Kelce, if Leonard's out, Kelce could have like 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like this could be his ceiling game. So that's like terrifying for me if I'm thinking about betting the Colts. On the other side of the ball, without T.Y. Hilton, those guys can't catch at all. Like last year in the 3 games Hilton missed, they dropped 19 passes in those games, and it hasn't gotten better. They dropped 7 passes last week. Eric Ebron dropped 4 passes himself. I don't know what happened to him. Like maybe he's just given up because like Andrew Luck's not there and he's not catching a dozen touchdowns anymore. It seems like he just quit and he's like reverted to what he was in Detroit. And he's just horrible. And yeah, if Doyle's not there and Hilton's not there, like that means Brissett's throwing to Zach Pascal and Paris Campbell who had that fumble. And like just no one else. Like Ebron's going to drop the ball. So it's very dubious for the Colts if those guys are out. But conversely, if those guys are playing, I think they can definitely hang with the Chiefs. I love the Colts roster. If those guys are in, they have a great offensive line. With Hilton, they have a dynamic weapon. Mack can run on the Chiefs. And with Leonard's one of the better linebackers in the NFL. So it really depends on who plays for the Colts. So for the sake of this podcast, I'll be with you on the Colts at +11. But if it's announced that both those guys are out, I'm going to be on the Chiefs, and I actually will bet on the Chiefs if both guys are out.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page here. And just Eric Ebron is the most frustrating player, probably one of the most frustrating players in the league. My old boss at Sporting News was a Detroit Lions fan. And when Ebron signed with the Colts and he became a fantasy factor, obviously we're covering fantasy, and just every week he'd just be like, so mad at Eric Ebron. And Eric Ebron struck again last week against me. I lost by 11 points in fantasy, and he had like an 11-point, 1 catch, 11 points for the touchdown. It was just a garbage time play. So Eric Ebron's just that ultimate guy who just always makes you face palm or just be very angry at him.
Yeah, it's like all or nothing, like really. Like he's either terrible or great. Like it's just really weird. Monday night game should be a good one for once. Browns at the 49ers. This line open up 49ers -5. It's down to 3.5. So it looks like the it's equal action. So who do you like here?
Yeah, who would have thought this would end up being a good game? But like you said, it looks like it should be competitive. I think the line's moving a bit because the Browns crushed the Ravens. It's important not to overreact to that too much. The 49ers are undefeated and coming off a bye. The only concern I have is the 49ers might be looking ahead to a showdown they have with the Rams the next week. That would be the thing that I'd be looking for. Also, they're still without Joe Staley, so I don't know if they're going to be in worse shape against Myles Garrett and Cleveland defense that has a solid pass rush. Um, so I know the advanced spread was more in favor of the 49ers, so we would get some line value picking them. I still think the Browns are going to keep this close. I think this is going to be a competitive game. I don't want to overreact to them beating the Ravens because, like we've talked about, Ravens are overrated. But I think right now, I would think the Browns for a unit or two at +3.5. If that line moves down to -3, I would probably switch my pick to the 49ers. So very torn on this game. I could see a case for either side, but I think the Browns just have more firepower and may be able to rattle Jimmy Garoppolo with that pass rush.
Yeah. So we're on opposite sides of this game, but I don't like this game. This is actually like one of my least confident picks of the week. I just don't really see anything I like here. Like there are conflicting things here. You mentioned that the 49ers might be looking ahead to the Rams. I think if this game were 2 weeks ago and the Browns are still being hyped up, that could be different. I think they'd be focused on Cleveland. With everyone thinking they'd win the Super Bowl. But now that people know that they're not going to win the Super Bowl, like even though the Browns clobbered the Ravens, I still think they're being disrespected and like kind of what's his name, Booger McFarland during Monday Night Football. He was talking about how disappointing the Browns still are, and so that he's kind of like Booger is kind of like the barometer of the public thinking for as far as I'm concerned. And if he's down on the Browns, then I think most people are still down on the Browns. So I don't know if the 49ers are going to be really focused for Cleveland, considering that the Rams are coming up. And yeah, they've had a bye, but that actually might hurt them here because they've had 2 weeks hearing about how great they are at 3-0. Like that, they just might not be focused for this game. On the other hand, I think this spread's too low. Like you mentioned that the advanced spread was higher. It was 49ers -4.5. So we're getting 4, which is one of the key numbers. So that's important. I made this line 49ers -7, and DVOA thinks it's the same thing. DVOA thinks it should be 49ers -7 as well. So I love the 49ers roster, and DVOA does too. Like they have a great pass rush. Their offensive line's awesome. Even though Joe Staley's out, only one lineman missing shouldn't be a big deal. They have some nice weapons. Their secondary is playing a lot better. They have a lot of going for them. And it's funny that like people are hyping them up because of Garoppolo, and like Garoppolo is their one big question mark right now. Like, will Garoppolo live up to expectations? And if he does, like they're a serious contender to win the Super Bowl. But we'll see. So I really like this Niners team. I just wonder if they're going to be focused. So I'm willing to take them at -3.5 just for office pool purposes, but I'm not going to bet this game. If this line drops to 3, I'll think about it because that's just like way too much line value to pass up. Like we don't know if they're going to be like focused or not. Like that, we're kind of both speculating, but we do know that the Niners are a better team than the Browns. And if it's only -3, that means we're getting the better team at only -3 at home, which I feel like is just a big edge.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see the case for that. I think the 49ers are a better team. They're certainly better coached. I have more faith in Kyle Shanahan than I do in Freddie Kitchens, and I will keep saying that until Freddie Kitchens proves me wrong. But I think the 49ers are going to suffer their first loss when people don't expect it. So that's part of why I think the Browns here. But again, I'm probably not betting on this one. If anything, it would be one unit. It's this, like you said, isn't one of the better games on the slate. I think there are a lot, well, maybe only a few ones that are really much better than this. But it's a Monday night game, so I'm probably going to end up betting on it. So I just got to figure out which side. But I'm leaning on Browns right now.
Okay, yeah, I'm probably the same way. So we'll see. Last question in the chat. TJ asks, 49ers, Rams, or Seahawks, who wins that division? Obviously, he left out the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Seahawks. I'm just picking the team that has the best quarterback. I know that the 49ers have the Rams have a good roster too, but I don't trust Jared Goff, and I think they're kind of due to fall off a little bit. That offensive line just isn't very good. Niners probably have the best offensive line. They have a solid defense. I'm a big fan of the Niners defense. Actually, I like their defensive coordinator Robert Saleh too. I think that's how you say his last name. I'm not sure, but I think he could be an underrated head coaching candidate this upcoming year. So I'm torn a little between the 49ers and Seahawks, but I think I ultimately go Seahawks just because I think if it comes down to a game against the Seahawks between the Seahawks and 49ers, I think Russell Wilson is able to win that, but it could go either way.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on the Niners. As I said, I love the roster. You mentioned their offensive line. They had the best offensive line out of those three teams. With the Rams. The Rams just had the worst offensive line out of those three teams, which is weird because they've had the best line in the NFL for 2 years, but that's no longer the case. So the 49ers had the best offensive line. I think they had the best pass rush, and I think they had the best secondary out of all these three teams. They might have the worst quarterback, although Jared Goff is not playing well. And you're right that Russell Wilson, you can't count out Russell Wilson. It's like kind of like it's foolish to say like Russell Wilson can't make the playoffs or something like that. Like he's just great. He and Pete Carroll are kind of like Belichick Brady, very light. Like they're the very like poor man's version of the NFC. Like not that Russell Wilson's a poor man's version of anything, but like yeah, Russell Wilson's just great. And but I just love the Niners roster overall. I think people are underrating them. I think as evidenced by the spread, like the Niners only -3.5. I made the 7, and DVOA thinks it should be 7 as well. Like the 49ers are just great. I just wonder if they're going to be looking ahead, but yeah, they're my pick to win the division.
Yeah, and I have some bias because I called the 49ers the most okay team in the league several times to start the year, but they've definitely proved me wrong. I'm just not willing to trust Jimmy Garoppolo yet, and that's coming from someone who really liked him when he was in New England. So we'll see what happens, though. Either way, I think this is going to be one of the best divisions in football to watch this year because there's a lot of exciting teams there.
Yeah. Even Arizona, like they're 3-1, but they're exciting. So yeah. So yeah, that's it for our Week 5 picks. Do you want to plug anything?
We got preview coverage of Patriots Redskins over at NBC Sports Boston. We also have that at Rigo's Rag, my Redskins site in the Fansided network. And for them, we're also covering Jay Gruden. Is he going to be fired? Does he deserve to be fired? The answer to that latter question you probably know. I will have my head coaching candidates to replace Gruden probably up by the weekend. We're going to have at least 24 on there, just as many as I can get to see who might be there. But Robert Saleh is on there. So if you're wondering how good he is, I've got more takes on him there. But yeah, and if you want to follow me at Jacob Kamiker on Twitter, I'll be talking about my picks this week and just some general football stuff. So always happy to talk to people there too.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that list. Kind of curious to see who the Redskins are going to hire. Hopefully someone good. All right, I'm at walterfootball.com. We're going to have pick updates. As I said, like last week, for example, I ended up betting a couple games. The Giants Redskins were one we disagreed on during the podcast. I actually ended up betting on the Giants, and they not only that, they were one of my super contest picks. So a lot can change with injuries and whatnot. And plus, I'm going to do more research during the week. So I might change my stance with some of the picks. So definitely, there are going to be pick updates. Fantasy football rankings are going to be updated as well. And a 2020 mock draft update on Wednesday morning. So check that out. Otherwise, I will talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.